Hello, welcome to my session on Samurai WTF. I promise you it stands for Web Training or Web Testing Framework. A little bit about me and who I am and what do I do. My name is Ochaun Marshall. I code, I teach, I hack. I'm a full-time developer, full-time offensive security consultant. And when I'm not doing either of those things, I'm teaching you how to take over the world. So whether it's through blogs, whether it's through videos, whether it's through rants and memes on social media, I really love introducing people to sort of the professionally evil mindset, the tagline of my company. Not my company as I own it, the company I work for. Let's be clear. And the professionally evil mindset is being able to adopt the mindset of an attacker in order to better assess security. So here I'm going to be inviting you into that same mind state. Chances are, if you're attending an event like B-Sides, I am preaching to the choir here. But one thing as security practitioners we need is to not waste so much time cramming into the last minute, trying to get this demo to work. And Samurai WTF is intended to help not just new people in security, but also industry veterans as well. All right, so here are the questions that we're going to answer today in the agenda. What is Samurai WTF? Why not just use Kali, bro? Is what I get. Is another question I get a lot when I tell people it is a utility security VM. Next, we'll do a deep dive into what's under the hood, looking at what's in the repo and how it's structured. And finally, since this is an open source project and it lives and thrives by the people, I'll share with you how you can get involved and how you can contribute. Out of the way. So what is Samurai WTF? What is a samurai but a warrior and his blade? Samurai WTF is a utility VM for application security training. So this is an OWASP project that's been in development since way back in 2008. In 2016, one of my coworkers, Mick, rewrote the thing from scratch using Vagrant. And now it has been augmented through Docker, Ansible, and Packer to automatically provision tools and hosts, and make sure that this utility VM is ready for class on day one. So that's Samurai as a whole. Now, Katana is a special, unique Samurai-focused project. It is a light package manager. And what its intention is how many times as instructors or as people just trying to work on CTFs and labs and doing self-study elsewhere, how many times were you sunk hours upon hours of just trying to get the thing to work? And Katana is really focused in on trying to simplify the process of spinning up, installing, starting, and uninstalling hosts. And so there's the web app that's just point and click simple to use. And there's the CLI tool that gives you the nitty gritty and deep dive into logs. And we'll demonstrate Katana in a sec. But the another question that I get so often is, why not just use Kali, bro? And here's the thing about Kali Linux. And I'm not downing Kali Linux when I say this, but it doesn't quite fit where we need to be. And let me be perfectly clear. Kali Linux is the burning finger of information security VMs. It is the Getsuga Tensho. It is the Rasengan and Kagebushin no Jutsu. It is Exodia. It is Pikachu. It is the Kamehameha Wave. It is a really good tool. It is a really good tool set that should be in every practitioner's pocket. Like, if you're not using Kali when you're on things like a network pen test, especially, you're kind of putting yourself at a disadvantage. And it has a whole bunch of tools that are really useful for network penetration testing, and some tools that more focus on the AppSec side. And those are wonderful, except what are you going to aim it at? And that's the problem here. When you've got like Metal Gear, nuclear warheads, this huge tool that you can use to attack something, it's kind of overkill when you don't have a target to aim at. And sure, there are websites designed to be vulnerable, designed to be poked at and prodded at, like Hack the Box and other things. But usually for those sorts of sites, you don't need Kali in order to use it. What we need is what someone who's doing self-study, or what someone needs when teaching a class. What we need is a place where you've got the tooling that you need and nothing more else, and targets automatically provisioned. And that is what Samurai WTF. It's the place where the pupil and the practitioner come together with the right tools and targets for the job, and teach web application and API penetration testing. And so here are some labs for Samurai WTF. Now, these are exclusive labs. They're built into the VM, and they're built into Katana, which is also automatically installed into the VM when you provision it. There's RSpace, and that is normally used for our PECSEC class, and that is cloud security, cloud and container security. Then we've got Musashi, where we'll spend most of our time here today, and that's just demo tools to explain the more difficult, nuanced types of things for application security, whether it's a CSP, how exactly does a CSP block cross-site scripting payloads, and cores, as well as a JWT lab. And then there's also Wayfarer, which is another vulnerable app that has a React front end with just Node and Express, very common now, and it has an OAuth identity, intentionally vulnerable OAuth identity problem. And I've been talking for about a good 10 minutes. So now we just need to hop in and do a demo. So here is Samurai WTF, and of course I've got my VirtualBox. I've downloaded the OVA. It's at tinysi/samurai, and you can download the OVA and you can run this on this as well. So when you start Katana, you will get and go to katana.wtf. You will get this page, and this web app. And here you've got your targets first, and then your tools at the bottom. Now, I and the people I work with, we are like a burp sweep shop, but this is an OWASP project, and we need things that are open source as well. So you can, if you want to, install Zap or any of these other tools, and then get that running. And when things fail, as things often do, you can also use the CLI tool. So Katana list, and this shows you all of the targets and the tools that we use here. So Katana. And yep. And along with the tooling, you can also use Samurai WTF to install others like DVWA. And once you've started a project and once you've installed a project, the spinning up the container and making sure that you can route to it, all of that is done through Nginx anyway, locally on the machine. So you can just hit start, and you can open things like, for example, Dojo Basic. And here, start. And I know, and I wait only a few seconds because sometimes when you start it, the route hasn't provisioned yet. So I've done enough of a delay. And see, you've got other targets available, such as DVWA. And you can just create the database, log in, and I'll give you a hint. The login one login credentials for DVWA is admin password. And so this is sort of like demoception, if you get what I mean. I'm doing a demo of things that I would normally demo during application security class. So things like stored or reflected, cross-site scripting. And one easy way to test this is Vectorian shot, and one easy way to test, and I'm thinking that this was set into a different mode. Yep, because it's got object encoding into it. Yeah. So in addition, there's another demo. There's another tool that I wanted to show you real quick. So Musashi. And this is, and we'll start with when you start Musashi, and note that like all of the URLs are pretty easy. When you highlight and hover the link, it's like Dojo Basic, Dojo-Basic, WTF, course, Dojo.WTF, DVWA, so on and so forth. And so there's cores, and then there's also the CSP. Now, CSP, I'm sorry, Dojo.WTF. And so here we're going, and I'm going to go ahead and check the CSP right here. Oh, it's not set, which is good, which is what we want. Here we're introducing, and normally for a full-on course, we go on what a CSP is. A content security policy is generally intended as a document to prevent, to limit what sources are allowed within your application. So whether for the script source tag, it specifies where the JavaScript is supposed to come from, as well as there's a styles tag and directive tag. But if you have a web application that does not have a content security policy set, you can just get quick and easy reflected cross-site scripting payload and also DOM based. And I'm going to demonstrate something to you that I guaranteed it's not going to work. Alert 2. And this is mostly because, again, this is DOM based XXS, and there's and the payload's supposed to be, payload's supposed to be here. So I can just inspect F12. Whoa, not quite. I just need the dev tools. Inspect elements. And it's hard, and there's not much to see because like script alert, whatever, is not to be seen. And the reason why, again, this is just, if you're just trying script tags when you're looking for cross-site scripting, it's not going to work because, again, DOM based, you need something that will render in the DOM. And this is an OWASP project, so OWASP cheat sheet, you can use an image tag instead. Source to something that you know is going to fail, like root directory, and on error set that equal to thinking the quotes are necessary. I just like doing that just in case. We could try, and we can try it either way. And there we go. And the payload executes because it's, of course, broken image. So when you're going through a class, when you're teaching, it's sort of meta how this is going anyway. When you're teaching in class, you can demonstrate these things using the CSP. Now, once you actually set the CSP, so for example, contact directive self, and then hit submit. Now, when we go back to home, this is just not going to work. And it's not going to work because the content security policy is blocking it. Now, default SRC, now with the content security policy like this, I really doubt will be any sort of anything that's functional remotely in the world. So usually when constructing a CFP, you allow self, and then you would say what other third-party domain that you're using for this, so or subdomain, so like api.example.com, that sort of thing. And so you can set the CSP. So you can set the CSP, you can run it, and there are also some additional demo exercises in the CSP dojo. Now back to the core. Now back to the cores demonstrator. So, and I'm wondering, should I run through the install of burp for this, or is this fine just to use the dev tools? Because burp is here, and oh no, that is way too tiny. Yep. Yep, that is way too tiny. And they do not allow resize windows. That's fine. But you know that you can install tools through Katana and run them. So it's fine, we can do that through, there's some parts of this demo that aren't. So we'll hop in and set that up as we're going along. So for logging in, test. And of course, this is normal. it doesn't matter what credentials you set, it will respond with a 200 and it will set the login cookie for the credentials. And this is, the default is no cores or same origin. And to just briefly touch on cores, because normally you spend 45 minutes to an hour discussing this with developers in like a 2 days class, but the quick rundown of cores is, it's a policy that allows you to loosen the same origin policy that is by default, because normally you're not supposed to be able to issue requests from one domain to another. Cores kind of just loosens that up just a little bit so that you can do things like have an API hosted at a different subdomain, and then have your website on another subdomain. So when you get list items, and that does not work, you get no response, and that is because same origin policy is in place, and there's no cores present at all. Now, if you loosen this up to be reflected, now when you send the request for list items, you can get it. You get it. It runs through the network just fine. The problem here and I'm usually used to using burp, and so using the dev tools I think kind of makes it all easier and kind of just slims it down. So usually you could take if you have reflected origin, you can use evilsite.com and then issue requests using reflected cores, and then send. Is there now? Where is that send button? Yep. And that is successful, even though origin, even though it's evilsite.com, you're not supposed to be able to do that cross origin like that. Because imagine if, for example, you're logged into Wells Fargo on one tab, and then imagine if you're logged into Wells Fargo or any other banking institution on one tab, and then other sites can just send arbitrary requests to it, to using a different forwarding your credentials in another tab. And so that's issue, and that's one security issue with cores. So you're not supposed to just reflect the origin, whatever origin is passed in. The final thing is like regex. And so this specific use case covers when you use, like, you allow certain all the subdomains of a given IP. So like api.example.com or blog.example.com, so on and so forth. And so you widen that permission and you use regex, but you don't anchor the tag correctly. So sometimes you'll find during tests is that you can do cross-origin requests if you host something malicious that happens to be on those lists of approved subdomains, or if they don't anchor the tag, if they don't anchor the regex at the end. So like, for example, instead of example.com, example.community, which is also a top level domain with COM as the first 3 characters. I've seen that in pentest as well. So we hop back over to the presentation. And this is what's under the hood. Here you've got Samurai WTF is been rebuilt using Vagrant. So when you clone the repo, you can use main, or if you want to be at the cutting, bleeding edge, use next. Git clone, use that. Then you clone, and then you just do Vagrant up. If you're not familiar with Vagrant, Vagrant is just open source HashiCorp product used for provisioning VMs. And so when you do Vagrant up, all you do is just spin up and deploy the VM. The provisioners will run for a while, so just let that provisioner script run before you sort of mess with it, and then continue on. And then you use Packer within the VM to sort of pull down the base box and set that and do those sorts of configurations, I should say. So Katana, we know, is the light utility CLI package manager. It's got RSpace, Musashi, Wayfarer. It's also got tools and also third-party open source targets like DVWA. And so most of the key repositories are bundled into the Samurai WTF organization. And so forget the slide. We just got to hop into the code. So Samurai WTF is the main repo. There's a deprecated SourceForge download. Don't do that. You can contact us with Slack and make issues. But what I wanted to focus in on is the Vagrant file. And that's sort of where the magic happens with Vagrant up. And so the first part of it, and you can configure, and when you clone the repo, you can change these configurations just like you do in the UI for VirtualBox. And so set the number of CPUs, set the graphics card, as well as, so set the number of CPUs, set the graphics controller, and part of that provisioning process is in the provision.sh. And so it pulls in the base box, does these configurations, and then goes into provision shell script. And the first part of this, honestly, all of this is probably for thematic, for themes and background in the UI, just because you have to have that awesome samurai picture in the back. But after that, you get into the real stuff. Some of the new things that we're trying to do is make sure that all of the targets have SSL enabled. So that's why we're doing make cert. And so, but the bottom part is actually the installing the Katana launcher. And so part of the provisioning process is, okay, let me just auto install Katana for you. And now we hop into the Katana repo. And so most of this you will not have to deal with or mess with. If you want a deep dive, we use a lot of pip. So there's a requirements.txt to sort of and we use a lot of Python for this. Chances are, if you're trying to add features to Samurai, and by features meaning, hey, there's this brand new AppSec tool that you got to know that I've been using or I wrote, and I just really want it to be in Samurai, you put it into modules. And so under tools, you see you've got Burp Suite, YAML, and you've got Burp Suite, Zap, SQL map, and so on for the tools. And for the targets, it's the same thing, DVWA, Musashi, and Musashi and the others. When you hop into a module, and this is the same commands that I was running, like Katana install or Katana remove or Katana start, Katana stop, all of these are just simple modules written in YAML. So we specify what repo that this will go out to get to, where it's hosted, its destination on the operating system, and then we also do some Nginx configurations. So, for example, the cores demo is on localhost 3000 to 3021. You can travel there, you can do localhost, and that's what we normally did, but trying to remember which ports is awful. So what would be easier is just using a .wtf domain that's routable. And so that's what these configurations are for. And so different actions, so like remove, which file, what services need to be stopped, and what files need to be removed in that case. So that is Katana. And since we're already in here, you need to understand that Katana as well is also a Katana module. So it's looping within itself. And so it sets up Nginx configurations, and it has its own modules like removing Katana, updating Katana. Katana tac update will usually get the latest from main and pull that in. And of course, under the repo targets that we make in-house for Samurai WTF, those have their own repository like Musashi. So now that you know everything about Samurai and where to go and all of that, we go into how to contribute. And this is really important. Number one thing is use it, whether it's going into the repo, cloning it, and using Vagrant up, or just going to tinysi/samurai and just downloading the OVA. We just want to make sure that this is open source for a reason. It is available for everyone to use. And we especially, at Securitas, we especially want you to use it as a competitor, because we are practitioners in the information security field as well. So if we go to the conference and we see Samurai WTF, that the speakers using Samurai WTF. Second thing is bug fixes and features. So for open source lives and breathes by people. So whether it's adding a new vulnerable web app as a target to host locally, or just new application security testing tools, just add a module. One of these modules is for Postman. That's not a security tool, but we use it for API testing all the time. And next is just to spread the message. Talk about Samurai WTF, hashtag Samurai WTF on social media or whatever. I'll throw in links at the end. I'll throw in little links later on, and so we can go into how to harass me and find me on social media. But yeah, spread the message. If you only do 1 and 3, that will help this project along. And so went through things really fast. Samurai WTF. Find us on GitHub on all of the repos, both the Slack channels. And for me personally, just go to my link tree. You'll find me on pretty much everything you want to follow. Now, I've been keeping an eye on the chat. Any questions, things to throw at me virtually. No, we're good. Let's see. Got a few people. All compliments, all good. Nothing else. So Matt Elliott asks, let's say I go full bore install. Is there a limit to what you can install at one time? No, not really. And you can see that sometimes when I have to use the CLI, I'm just running things, provisioning things. So there's no real limit on what you can. So to answer your question, Matt, there's no real limit on how many tools you can run. You can get bored with one target, move on to the next, and so on and so forth. And the CLI, and you can see the CLI is a huge benefit, is because it sort of streamlines the logs. I can tell you how many times I've been a part of a class or a demo, and you can't, and actually conducted demos, and you've had to, troubleshoot a little bit, try to remember, like, oh, what was that command, and so on and so forth. This sort of streamlines it. So if something breaks, you know exactly where to go. But generally, it streamlines it so you wouldn't have to dig in. And yeah, you're welcome, Stefan. If I don't have this running in my lab, be surprised. Yeah, thank you. Yeah, thanks. Well, thanks, Timothy. I don't know if that's all right. And thanks again, Cody, for coming over. So if there are no other questions, I'm going to be here for the conference. I'm also in the Slack channel, and also not Slack, Discord channel. I'm Ochaun, probably only Ochaun in the world, but I'm Ochaun #2723. So you can find me on the Discord. You can find me in Slack, and I'll be hanging around besides its Calorie for a while.